Yo, what's good, y'all? It's me, live in the flesh, Gen Sports Corner, back at you for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. And hey, I didn't talk about the fight after it happened, but what else is there to really say about it? I put up a prediction video. It got partially blocked because I had too many clips in there that got either partially or fully blocked or whatnot. But my prediction was ninth round stoppage by Canelo. It went to full 12, but I wasn't surprised that Charlo lost the fight. And here are my reasons. Reason number one, and I think this was painfully apparent, the layoff. You have a 17 and a half month layoff as Jermell Charlo. I don't care what weight class you're fighting at, the timing, the ring rust. Secondly, you're going up two weight classes to fight in a division you've never fought at before. And then third, you're going up two weight divisions to fight the guy at that weight, not just any guy, not a tune-up fight, not a tomato can, not a stay busy fight. You're fighting the guy besides David Benavidez at 168. So you have three things that were a recipe for disaster. And I said that in my video. Go ahead and check my video out if you haven't. The visibility is down, but I think the video is still up. And you'll see all the things I said in there I'm saying right now. I just didn't see how Charlo was going to win this fight. If anything, it should have been the older Charlo, Jermell Charlo fighting, but he's not in the right state of mind to be fighting right now. He has to get things together in his life as a man, let alone worrying about fighting Canelo Alvarez or Caleb Plant or Benavidez or any of them boys, right? So this played out the way I expected it to. I don't know what you guys think, but that was my sentiment in my breakdown video. I gave a pretty long breakdown video, but I think it was pretty apparent that I thought that Jermell had a pretty uphill battle to even be competitive against Canelo. In the same fashion, and in hindsight, that Canelo was going to have an uphill battle being competitive against Dimitri Bivol. So let's go ahead and look at the punch stats. The way the fight played out was pretty much Canelo just stalking Jermell around the ring, and Jermell just trying to land punches when he could, but really just trying to stay out of stay out of harm's way. Let's be honest here, man. And you can see it borne out in the stats. Canelo was 134 for 385 in terms of punches thrown versus punches landed for a 35% connect percentage. And Jermell was 71 out of 398 for 18% connect percentage. And Canelo was pretty judicious with the jabs and the power shots. He landed 78 power punches to 56 jabs. So he was pretty even between those two. And he landed his jab at about a 30% clip, which is solid, considering that Jermell was doing his best not to get hit. And he landed about 40% of his power punches, which is, again, pretty solid against a guy who's really on his bicycle in that fight. And he put him down in the seventh round with a shot that he thought it was going to loop around the guard, but he changed up the angle. And I talked about this in my video. I talked about the different arm slots that Canelo has, especially when he's throwing that three. So this would be the lead hand, an orthodox fighter. This is the mirror perspective from the way the camera's looking. So he's usually throwing that three, and he has a certain arm slot. He throws the hook to the body from here, or he can throw it up top from the same slot. So it's very hard to pick up whether he's going up top or down low with that three. And similar to the two that he threw. All right. So instead of throwing the three, he came with the two. And Charlo thought it was going to be a four, but it turned out to be a two. Charlo had the high guard up, and he thought it was going to be a four looping around the guard, but instead it was a two that came right down the center. Boom. And that's the shot that put him down in the seventh round. And it's really the feinting. And one of the other things that I mentioned in the video was he changes his head slot a lot. You see guys like Manny Pacquiao do this a lot, Lomachenko. You see Canelo, who'll come out in that high guard, and he'll have his weight transferred slightly more towards the front foot. And he'll sit here and he plays a sticky hands game. Pause. As soon as you touch, he's not going to throw back as soon as you touch, but touch here. Okay, I got you. And touch here. Boom, now I'm throwing back. Right? lulls you to sleep at times, and he doesn't give you a chance to breathe. Take a shot here, boom, boom, bah, bah, bah. I mean, take a shot, boom, move the head off to the side. You know, all these little things, you're putting that mental pressure on a fighter, especially a guy that's been out the ring for so long. Look, they both had hand injuries prior to this fight. Canelo hurt his hand after the Triple G fight, and I think that was part of the reason why he struggled against John Ryder. I really do. He won the fight, but I think he wasn't really able to throw the punches with the type of confidence that he's used to doing so. And the same thing with Jermell. He broke his hand in preparation to fight, I believe, Tim Tszyu at 154 after his win over, I don't remember after his win over Brian Castano. He was preparing to fight Tim Tszyu in January of 2023, and he broke his hand in 2 places in December during training camp. And he never got a chance to get a fight in prior to fighting Canelo. And I just think that really hurt him. He should have had a tune-up fight, hell, even at 154, just to stay sharp, man. Just to stay sharp. Because it's one thing to get the sparring in the gym done, but it's another thing when you're going up against a top-flight guy at a weight you're not used to. And you're having to go up to that weight, acclimate to it. You don't know how the guys at that weight are going to handle your punches. Some of the guys that are in training camp, they might not handle your punches well, but a guy like Canelo, let's be real. He's fought Triple G, who punches like a light heavyweight. He's faced Kovalev, even though Kovalev was faded. Kovalev hits hard. He's faced a lot of guys that are bigger than Jermell Charlo. And so he had Dimitri Bivol. Even though he lost the fight, you're talking about a full-fledged light heavyweight that he was able to take punches from and survive in that fight. So he knows very damn punches from and survive in that fight. So he knows very damn well what he can and what he can't withstand and what he's going to be expecting from Charlo coming up in weight. Charlo had some good punching power ever since joining Derek James, but we haven't seen that in action against a full-fledged super middleweight. And we saw the outcome. I think he felt the power early on, and he was like, yeah, all right, I'm just going to do my best here, but it's probably not going to be my night. So, look, I'm more intrigued by the fight between Boo Boo Andrade and Benavidez than I was for Charlo and Canelo. Even though I wanted to see a good matchup, that's the one where you know it's truly a good matchup because they're both full-fledged 168-pounders, and we've seen them in the ring at that weight and be competitive against guys at that weight. So that's the one I'm really looking forward to. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that. But that's the way I saw it, and I wasn't really surprised. And the scorecards, they were reflective of that. The scorecards were 119 to 108 by Steve Weisfeld, 118 to 109 by Max DeLuca, and 118 to 109 by David Sutherland. And the fans, they gauged it 120 to 107. They had it even wider, which, I mean, I'm kind of there. I mean, I gave 1 round to Charlo. I think it was the second round I gave to Charlo, but even that was a swing round. So I just don't really see how he was really competitive in this fight. But, you know, that's what it is. Let me know what you guys think. But the undercard fights were much more intriguing than the main event. And I don't know if it was Sean Porter or Timothy Bradley that mentioned this. And Tim Bradley called it as well. He said this is a mismatch. And I saw it the same way. But we had the fight between, the young prospect, Curmel Moton, pro debut, Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s protege. And he was out there at the fight, by the way, too. He showed love to Canelo in his camp. But Curmel Moton came out. Man, he lit it up, man. First round stoppage at a minute 48 seconds over Flores, and it wasn't competitive. He's super fast at super featherweight, pun intended, and he's just I am excited to see him and his growth. He's instantly on my radar now. And then the second fight that stood out to me was Frank Sanchez and his 4th round stoppage over Scott Alexander. Frank Sanchez, I'm a huge fan of his, and I want to see him get more opportunities to fight some of the bigger names. He's 22-0, and he got tested. I think it was first or second round. Don't remember what round it was. He was throwing hands in the middle of a combination with Alexander, and Alexander caught him flush. And he stumbled forward and got the chicken legs. And to his credit, he composed himself. He got himself together, and he came back and reestablished his dominance in that fight, got a knockdown, and eventually they stopped the fight in the corner. So, congratulations, Frank Sanchez. But I want to see him get more fights. I think he's 31 or 32. He's right in his prime. So now's the time to start making moves to get the big fights. Because, no shade. I think he's 31 or 32. He's right in his prime. So now's the time to start making moves to get the big fights. Because, no shade, but you don't want to be where Boo Boo Andre is right now, where he's just getting his first huge fight at the age of 35 or 36. And we don't know if he still has 4 years of his prime left or if he's going to start the decline. We don't know yet, right? Especially with him adjusting to the weight at 168. He's had like 2 fights, I think, now, 168. But we don't know. Right? So with Frank Sanchez, I want to see him get some bigger fights, maybe with Zhang. Zhang just had the big fight in the rematch over Joe Joyce where he stopped him, right? Get in the ring with guys like that and then see where you're actually at. Test your mettle. Time is of the essence. And then the next fight that really stood out to me was the one between Erickson Lubin and Jesus Alejandro Ramos Jr. Ramos Jr. was 20-0, young prospect. I think he was only like 22 or 23. And Erickson Lubin, he's been around for a while, but he's only 27. He's 25-2. He's only 27 years old. I think he had one loss, the knockout loss in the first or second round against Jermell Charlo a couple years ago. Yep, 2017. He had the KO loss in round 1, got caught with a flush shot and could not beat the count. And then his other loss was against Sebastian Fundora. He got stopped in round 9 in what was a crazy fight. He went down in round 2, and then he put the 6'5" Fundora down in round 7, and then Fundora was able to recompose himself and stop Lubin. But his 2 losses have been against the creme de la creme. And even in the losses, one was we did not expect that knockdown and that knockout. You know what I mean? That can happen to anybody. And then the loss against Fundora, highly competitive fight. So he came out and in a fight where he wanted to establish himself as a perennial contender still versus being a gatekeeper, which is what they were trying to push him towards. He went out there, he earned that freaking win. And then let me tell you, he went out there, he earned that freaking win. And then let me tell you something. I was listening to that commentary on Showtime, and it was absolutely disgusting. I don't know who was commentating, but it was fucking disgusting. Every round, Lubin was coming out and putting leather on that man, and Ramos was doing his thing too in spots. But they were like, "Oh yeah, I got Ramos up by like 3-4 rounds." I'm like, "Nigga, what? Like Lubin is beating this man clearly. Like, what are y'all talking about?" So like, take note of that. Start looking at some of the fights, and I do this as well with the sound off, because if you're looking at the fight with the sound off, it's clear who's winning. And you turn that sound back on, and they're dick riding, just straight up deep throating some of these fighters. Pause. I hate that, and that's not what I'm about. So if you're on this channel and you have a certain fighter you love, and I'm not talking about them in the kindness of fashion, respectfully, I just don't give a fuck. I'm gonna tell it like I see it. And look, I thought Lubin did his thing, and I thought he got a great win. And I'm actually looking forward to see if he can get a rematch with Jermell or maybe with Fundora and compete at 154, because the division is wide open now. You got Tim Tszyu, you got Jermell coming back down to 154. You got Lubin, who's revitalized after a very impressive win, in my opinion. And I had an 8-4 over a great young prospect in Ramos Jr. So I'm reading the comments here. Bro, Canelo dominated from round 1 to round 12. Absolutely. He absolutely did, bro. There's really nothing that Jermell could do, because he's a skilled fighter, but he hasn't faced somebody at that weight who's that skilled. If anything, he should have taken a lesson from, like I said before, when Canelo went up to 175, and not only did he want to go up to that weight to get a belt, but you wanted to face Bivol, who's a full-fledged 175-pounder who got a great jab, great feet. You learned a lesson, just like Jermell learned a lesson in this fight. And let's be honest, he might have just taken the L for his brother, because it probably should have been Jermell in there first, but that's what it is. The next fight, like I said, is Boo Boo and Benavidez, and then the winner of that fight, in my opinion, needs to fight Canelo and go from there. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's really the fight. I think Benavidez don't. I think Benavidez and Canelo is the fight at 168. That's me. Read more comments here. Charlo didn't win around. Bro was duty juiced. Absolutely correct. Now I want to ask y'all a question. Going into the fight, and I mentioned this in my prediction video as well. You can go to the end. I have it timestamped. I did not see Jermell bringing the same energy against Canelo as he did against some of his previous opponents. He wasn't pressing his forehead up against Tony, his head like he did with Tony Harrison. He wasn't up in Trout's face, putting his forehead against his forehead with the mean mug. He wasn't sitting there talking all that junk like he was with Brian Castano. Like, he wasn't doing all that. No, he was just like, yeah, I respect you, dog. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a good fight. I'm coming to win, man. It's like you're trying to convince yourself during the press conference that you were actually going to be competitive because you knew in your heart of hearts that you had a monster sitting across from you, and the gravity of his situation really sank in. I think not at the weigh-ins, but when they flew in for the first meet and greet, when they first flew into Vegas, that's when I think it really set in for him. He was being respectful at the press conferences back in August or whatnot, but I think it really set in for him when he pulled up in Vegas for that first press conference. And you saw it in the ring. It spilled over into the ring. So let me know what y'all think, because we've seen that, right? And then rewind 1 or 2 months ago, Jermell, another young lion, he's in an argument, right? Because him and Jermell, like their wives, girlfriends, what have you, they had a dispute, like one have you. They had a dispute, like one chick beat up the other chick and they're arguing and whatnot. And that's a whole nother story. But Caleb Plant was in there trying to mediate, trying to calm things down. And in the middle of that, Jermell, the older one, puts his hand on his beard and trying to like young bull him. And he was like, yo, like, don't do that shit. And he kept doing it. He's like, okay, I got you. So he caught his ass backstage later. I forgot which fight it was. And he, fuck is wrong with you, right? And Jermell, I think one, he ran into a real one, and then two, he knew he was wrong, so he didn't respond back in kind with violence because he knew he was wrong for what he was doing earlier. But like, how you gonna have that whole persona? I'm a young lion. I use my emotions to my advantage. Yeah, I might get out of control with my emotions sometimes, but it works to my advantage, and I keep that energy all the time. No, you don't. You didn't keep that same energy when Danny Jacob pulled up on y'all either. You didn't keep that same energy when Boo Boo pulled up on y'all. Like, when the real ones pull up on them, I need to see that same energy. That's all. I'm not trying to indict nobody, but my eyes aren't lying to me. All right. And I'm seeing in the comments, he was timid for sure. Darnell says, I think he also noticed how big Canelo really was on fight day. Yep. Because Canelo, let's be real. And I mentioned this when I made my prediction videos years ago for the Triple G and Canelo fights, first and second one. I noted how Canelo was draining himself to get down to 154, fighting at those catch weights. He really walks around at probably like $170, $175 anyway, when he's not really training. I mean, he's always training, but when he's not training for a fight, when he's not in fight camp, he walking around like $170, $175. He's a short, stocky guy. He's a block, right? So for people to think that Jermell, being a taller guy at 6 foot, yeah, he gained the weight. Yeah, he's physically taller, bigger, I guess, but he's not more solid. And I think we mentioned the same thing with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. Yeah, Errol Spence is the taller guy. Yeah, he's a big guy for that weight, but Terrence Crawford, he's built from the ground up. He's more solid. He might not be bigger, but he's more solid. And I think that, to your point, Jermell really noticed that, especially at the weigh-in. And the tension was palpable in that place. I think we all noticed that. I think we all did. So that's my thoughts on that fight. there really wasn't much to say going into it, in my opinion. If you look at the replay of my prediction video, you know what I mean? That's the way I called it, and that's the way it played out. So, like I said, what's next for Canelo, I think, is the winner of Benavidez and Andrade. And look, I like both guys, and I wouldn't be mad regardless of who wins. And it would be pretty cool to see Andrade get a win and then get another shot to be an all-time great if he wins and then goes ahead and gets the fight against Canelo. Or vice versa, if Benavidez gets the win, now you have a win over Caleb Plant, and then Andrade, who's a phenomenal fighter on top of being a great amateur. And then if you get the fight against Canelo and have a great showing, whether you win or lose, then you can either have a rematch or maybe you had a big win and now you're just solidified legacy-wise. It's a great time for boxing at 168, I think, right now. And like I said, I think Lubin honestly had the best performance of the night and reinserted himself into contention at 154. Because if you look at what Lubin did, I think, Darnell, you missed my discussion on Erickson Lubin, but he had a very good win in the, I guess you could say the co-main event, per se. It was the fight right before the main event. No, my bad. Ugas and Barrios fought before the main event, and before that was Lubin versus Ramos. And Lubin, I think, reinserted himself into the discussion for contender at 154. Because what we saw from Lubin, look, I know that Jermell fought Canelo, and there's a reason why he didn't have too much, but what I saw from Lubin, I'd like to see him running back with Jermell. Does he lose again? Maybe, but I think he has the skills to beat Jermell. So I want to see him running back with Jermell if possible. And he certainly made a hell of a strong case on Saturday night over Ramos, who everybody was expecting Ramos to win. He was a heavy favorite, and the commentators were dick riding. That's the Cliff Notes version for you, Darnell. And he still came out, and in my opinion, whooped that ass. I mean, he didn't beat him down, but it was a clear victory. I would say 8-4, in my opinion, for Lubin. That's the way I had it scored. And I think the judges had it similar as well. Let's see. What else is in the comments here? If Benavidez wins and Jermell wins versus Jose Benavidez, they will set that up before Canelo. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, you make a strong point there. So it's certainly everything got shaken up from this fight. Everything got shaken up from this fight. The ripple effects are crazy. That's the take-home message from this fight. The ripple effects, not the fight itself. As we saw with Spence and Crawford, it's the ripple effects. All of a sudden, you're talking about Crawford and Canelo when we weren't even thinking about that before. And now all of a sudden, you're talking about Jermell and now all the fights that he's going to have going back to 154. You know, you're coming off a loss. Who do you fight next? Now, are you going to fight Tim Tszyu next? Right? Because that was supposed to be the fight originally. Did Tim Tszyu see some weaknesses with you versus Canelo now? So many questions. Now, Erickson Lubin, he's just on your undercard. You knocked him out. He came back, fought on your undercard, had a better performance against a very, very strong opponent. And now he's looking to take your shit at 154. So now you have a bunch of people that may be smelling blood in the water. They're seeing the lions roaming around. They're seeing a cut on the lion's side. They're like, ooh, right? So you have to wonder about these side. They're like, ooh, right? So you have to wonder about these things. All right, so that's what I have for you guys today. I'll be obviously making a prediction video for the Benavidez and Boo Boo Andre fight coming up. And then I'll be talking about, if it ever does happen, the fight that got signed officially between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. Now, I'll believe it when I see it, but the fight is officially signed and they are going to be fighting. All right. I don't know if they finalized a date for the fight yet, but they agreed on a deal. So once I have more evidence that it will actually be happening, then I'll start making videos for that fight, because that's obviously one of the biggest fights in boxing right now. Let's be real. All right. So I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the laughs from the comment section as well. and a lot of good discussion today. So I'm going to hop off, but for those that are going to see me on Facebook, I'm actually going to give my prediction video for the Phillies, because we have the first games. We have the first game one of the wild card series between the Phillies and the Marlins at 8 o'clock tonight Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that. I actually left a little bit of a preview video already if you want to check that out, but I'll be leaving a more in-depth one when I hop over to the live stream on Facebook. So catch y'all over there, and hope you enjoy the video. Deuces.